I think the next paragraph is, it's all right, okay. I think the next paragraph is, we come to that. Basically, I think the next paragraph is about the Mayura Emperor Asoka, because everyone knows the king, especially in the South India, the King Asoka, the most powerful empire in Indian history. So here, I guess, why Rupert wanted to put this paragraph here, just wanted to say, that actually the Asoka passed, in the power just after the Buddha passed away, maybe 250 years, something like that, about 300 years. So, and then he could be one of the way that to prove that there was the Buddha, because he definitely have erect this, what we call this pillar, Ashoka pillar, what we call. And the pillar are so, if you've been to India, so how we nowadays locate the Buddha sites is because based on the pillar. And that means before Christ, about 300 years, those pillars were put very tall. And even now in India, now if you look at the money, or you look, there was like a 4 lion kind of a symbol in all money. They call capital, yeah.
That's the architecture.
So,
element.
So that is basically is the Asoka pillar. So because that's the most powerful empire of India, and the pillar have the inscription about, this is the place that Buddha was born. This is a place that the Buddha was basically like the Buddha were renounced, and this is where he cut his hair off and so forth like that. So if you found the pillar and then you found the site, because Asoka was one of the definitely one of the pious emperor, the most pious emperor in Indian day you could understand. Whenever he free, he go to pilgrimage all these Buddha sites, and then even though the Indian was later on were colonized, basically you could say, or invaded by Muslim. So the Indian actually was 850 something years been under the Muslim before the British colonized came to India. So it was the Muslim, colonized, but they tried to destroy a lot of things. Lots of statue sites were completely destroyed, But then the pillar they couldn't destroy it because it's so strong, really, really strong marble. So you could just only see the all pillar fall down, but they have no way to. They may just try to cut it, but they still couldn't do that, Okay. Anyway, I think that they put it here just to say even that time, during the before Christ, about 300 century, so or 3 centuries ago, before Christ. So actually, the Buddha always, prefer the emperor Asoka also always went there to worship all these places. The pillar in the Lumbini, that means where the Buddha was born. This is where they come from, the pillar, the translation. When the King Biyadasi beloved the gods, King Biyadasi means the Asoka, okay, had been anointed 20 years, he himself came and worshipped here because this is where the Buddha, sage of the Sakyas, was born. Okay, that's what the inscription in the pillar. Okay. Anyway, we know that the Bodhisattva was born in a Sakya family. Sakya is a surname. It's a kind of like a race. Okay, belong to the Sakya clan. It's a kind of like if a Scottish people, they have like a clan name. So Sakya is a clan. So the Buddha was born in a Sakya clan, you could say, in the Kshatriya family. Kshatriya is mean, in Indian culture, you were born, you were kind of destined. Either you become a businessman, or you're destined to become a slave, or you're destined to become the royal family, or destined to become a priest. So, and then he was born as kind of the royal family. That means a warriors, you could say a warriors family, Kshatriya. So, and he was named as a Gautama. Okay. Now, please remember this name Gautama. It's because in Pali Buddhism, usually when we talk about the Buddha, we say Gautama Buddha, but not in Chinese. Chinese always say Sakyamuni Buddha. Okay, so That's very clear. When you hear people speak English, they say, oh, that's Sakyamuni Buddha, then somehow you know he have an inclination of start to learn Buddhism from the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. But if you start from early Buddhism, there's always a Gautama Buddha, Gautama Buddha. Okay? For me, it's very clear when I hear people say, I somehow know how that person been educated at first. Anyway, the legend said that after the Gautama was born, and his mom died, and his mom was born in a Tushita heaven. Okay, and then, however, the Gautama Buddha, when he was a child, was named Siddhartha, mean he whose purpose is accomplished, means Siddhartha. Okay, okay. And then, of course, there's also somehow there's a lot of story about how he grew up. So, but here, now because he was born, actually, he had also one other interesting thing. He's possessed of 32 marks. But I think this is just a general way of saying he possesses 32 marks. Accordingly, to be strictly speaking, you have to say he possesses only 30 marks. Okay, because the other 2 marks had to be when the Buddha was grown up. You know, when the Siddhartha was grown up, also only when the person was kind of attained Buddhahood and the other 2 marks was fulfilling. Otherwise, a person was born, it should be only have possess of 30 marks. Okay. But then this is how a general way of talking. Say he was born with 32 marks. You know what is 32 marks? You know, anyone? Though the term is called Mahapurisha, so we suspect that maybe in those days, it's believed that someone who was born in a very unique way, must possess a certain marks. It means, for example, like the hair will turn on one side.
Only turn one side.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
And then also it contains 40 teeth. So and then
muscle.
yeah, but basically I mean and the hand is long. The land is long. Is that his hand could touch on the knee or even when he stands. So and even a little lower than the knees also. So like that and so forth, 32 marks. But the tradition said that because he was born in such a kind of unique way, and of course it might be in those days people believe that those who were born in such a way means somebody must be really, really special, like that. Okay. So, but then that's why the king was very happy. And he asked one of the ascetic, the most famous ascetic, to come to predict that the newborn prince's life, right?
Here's a remark. It says, such marks may not be visible to ordinary eyes.
Yeah, I think Rupert Gethin have the idea. I think he maybe want to revise that later on, I don't know. But we did discuss that. We think that the marks could be visible to the eyes because according to Rupert Gethin, the one who write this book thing, that is only like people when they do meditation, they feel the arms is long, they feel this thing is like that. So he thought that might be not necessarily, these marks are not being visible to the eyes. I think that is not, certainly is not even the traditional in early Buddhism way of thinking. That definitely you could see it. But I only have a question is when the kids were just born, you couldn't have all 32 marks for like 40 teeth, for example, right? But this is just a general way to say that this kid was born is very unique. Now, one thing about the feet is that, let's say, if his feet have like a longer heel, our heel here is just a little longer, and it's quite voluptuous, quite full, and that is one of the marks. That I could understand as a kid, you could see it, but you couldn't see the teeth, for example, And one of the marks is that about the manhood, the manhood, and but the manhood actually is only for when somebody who attained the Buddhahood. That means I believe that the manhood has to be like a horse. They could complete hide it inside, not complete, like almost like can retract inside, like a horse. And so far, I don't think the kid, so. Anyway, so, but this how this traditional way of saying that he was born with the 32 marks, and definitely was predicted as so good. And then the what is that, the Asita was the ascetic, who predict their life and thinking that either he could become a Buddha or he could become a monarch, So I somehow think actually he knew that he would become someone spiritually the greatest, not the monarch. But in front of the king, could you say, oh, he definitely will just become the spiritual leader, not the king. He might be, his head may be chopped off, right? But I don't know how this old lady explain that. I will explain that. If I were the Asita, I won't say that. I would say, wow, this is really a marvelous kid, you were born in such a different site, which is quite unique. And then he either can be the monarch. In Indian tradition, become a monarch means not just a monarch because of as a king, but then he will become a king. He doesn't need to raise a war, and everybody would just think you are the best. We would just have to listen to you like that. That's what the idea of the Indian understand of the greatest monarch is. Not using the power, not using the violence to conquer the people, but just because you have the wisdom, the way you rule the country so good, everyone just want to say, okay, why don't you just be the only leader like that? So that's the monarch in Indian understanding, and I guess he might see that because according to the sources I read, actually. The Asita, when he went back, he tell his cousin, he's very old. According to the story, said he saw he had the divine eyes also. He could predict even this little baby what he would, and he somehow first he was happy. And then they said that why you were happy, and he said because I could see somebody who really have a great wisdom. Of course, everybody love it, including the Siddhartha's parents. But then the next thing, then he's crying. Then why is crying? He say, "Oh, I just cry because I predict that I knew that by the time he was become a great leader, I would not be alive." That's why he feel that he doesn't have the chance to learn from this kid, the baby. Anyway, but the important thing is that story is that actually he went back. He told his cousin that if you see this kid one day renounce the life, you have to follow him. That's why, who is his cousin? I was supposed to talk this text today, but I think we don't have time. That the first sermon, when the Siddhartha renounced the life, one of the leader, the oldest one, actually is the Asita's cousin, Kondanya. Anyway, we have to know that in the Buddhist story, if we examination, who was the one after the Buddha become the enlightenment or become fully liberated or attain to fully liberation? It's Kondanya. And Kondanya actually was the cousin of the great priest in those days, in that area at least, So that's why I think that definitely he knew that he will left the palace, but he won't say so. Okay. Anyway, now the story said that because the Buddha, the king was so pleased, the father of the Siddhartha was so Suddhodana, his name, so he hoped that there's a way to stop him at all, to have any idea to become a spiritual leader, That's why he built up such a good palace for him to stay, giving all the things. And there's also one thing is said that he tried to stop these old people work or stay around the Siddhartha. The so-called the old people, the sick people, the ill people were ill, and then what else? And then the death, okay, and to let him to know the death. That's the reason why one day when the prince had the chance to leave the palace, because he was not allowed to leave any other places, go to the normal, like a normal town. So, you know, even nowadays in India, you could see this sort of thing. Imagine 2,600 years ago. So actually, then he left, and he was shocked by when he saw this thing. You could see that, imagine that you never know that surrounding you is always beautiful thing, young people, healthy persons. But we kind of suspect, but don't they think about fathers and mothers getting old? But of course, I guess, you know, they try to avoid this topic for him or somehow, anyway. So definitely he left that when he had a chance to say, okay, now my father is not here. So why don't we just left the palace and see how's the outside world? Anyway, that's why he went with the chariot and he saw those things. And then also, that's what we call the famous foresight, you know. He saw the old people. He would never imagine that people can be old, so old and then crippled, you know, on the street in India. And he asked, what are these people? So, and the chariot said, those are the old people. So he said, everybody will become like that? He said, yeah, everybody will get old like that. So he was shocked by that, knowing that. And then also, then he saw people crying, that's the dead people. What happened with these people crying so much? And he said, because someone died. So, and he was shocked to know actually someone would be dying one day. And the other thing is that he saw the people was mourning. What are these? They say people get ill. So you could see the Siddhartha must be very healthy, he never get ill, kind of like. And so anyway, he was shocked by that. That's why he left, he went back, he was kind of like, maybe in the modern term, kind of depressed, right? He really don't know, he think that. Because he asked the chariot, you know, these people are like that, will you be facing the same thing? He said, I will face the same thing. And he said, will I be even face the same thing? He said, yeah, you will be face the same thing. So that really made him depressed. And he started to think that life is not always as beautiful as he thought it was, you know. So he was told that actually he was married to a young and beautiful wife called Yasodhara, and then he had a son called Rahula. Okay. Anyway, now basically that is one of the act, the fifth act. We discussed already. That means the fifth act talk about that he has a beautiful wife, had a son, had a very good, you know, family life, you know. The next page on 20 and 21, you have a paragraph. Actually, it's directly from the early Buddhist source. This source is just only say that the Buddha actually did tell his monk, you know, his following students, that what kind of life he had. And this is from early Buddhist sources. You could say this is more like a reliable source, you know. So I just say that how his life was, what kind of garment he used to wear. You know, there's a term for it, say that whatever the sandals, the clothes, and turban, they all had to make from benas. Benas is nowadays in India called Varanasi. Still is the same. If people want to get married, the woman, they always think the most blessed clothes, they sari, you know, the woman, the Indian women, they wear this kind of like a sari, they call it. And maybe like a straw, And that one, the thing, the best is to make from Benaras, mean nowadays in India called Varanasi. Okay. It's a very funny country. I mean, that's a lot of people want to see, not country, a very funny town. It's very spiritual, very old, very old, but they have a long history, very old. And that's only might be the only city nowadays, I won't say might be, but the most density city that you could see the cow walking on the street, the donkey walking on the street. You are also walking on the street, like that, you know. And then lots of people went to visit there. For Hindu, Indian religion, that is the most holy city. Okay, one of the most holy cities. Anyway, here to just mention in those days, not only holy, they have the best handicraft there too. You know, that's why the clothes, and only for very rich people could afford to buy the clothes and material from that area. But I think this paragraph is important, because the Buddha was not boasting about how good his life he was. So important the last, word he said. So when he reflected, when he was shocked and disturbed and disgusted and seeing that actually people could get old, people could get ill in such a way, and people could get die. So, and he knew that he himself was subject to the aging, sickness, and the death, and not beyond this aging, sickness, and death. So even the others also do that thing. So when the Buddha was, when we say Siddhartha, when the Siddhartha reflects us, the conceit of the young, health, and the life entirely left him. This is very important because when the people are young, they don't want to devote so much on the practices because they think they're young, they have energy. Ain't like someone here. I always say that, but it's true only when you get ill, when you get old, you maybe start to think, the life is something that we need to go think about more, anyway. But this just want to show actually Buddha, the Siddhartha, even he was a prince, he had such a good life, but he actually has a way to put down his pride. According to Buddhist commentary, say this means a kind of pride. The pride of being young, the pride of being healthy, the pride of being, thinking that life will be wonderful, entirely could be always wonderful. So that's a pride. But the Buddha had, the Siddhartha had the wisdom to realize that earlier and put that aside. So that's why he could have had a different decision in his life. So the next one is about, the sixth one, act, is about not having the good life now. And he started to know that this enchantment with the life of pleasure. And there are a lot of stories about this. Please, next time I will tell certain book if you like to read, and lots of story about in the palace, what happened there. And then he felt like really displeased also. Not that what he only seen. And because of that, he started to see something unusual now. Because in those days, think everything is wonderful. After he came back from outside, then he started to see things maybe not necessarily so that wonderful. That's why we say that in the modern time, he started to have a little depression already. So he started to see something in the dark side of the palace also, the place he lived. Now, of course, one thing important is that if the Siddhartha didn't go for renunciation, that's what we talk about page 21, then we won't have the Buddha. So one other act, the number 8 act, I think, 6, 7, 8, I think. And then the thing is about renunciation. That's called Mahapravajana, Mahaprabhaja in Pali and Sanskrit, Greek going forth, or you could say the Greek renunciation on the 7th story. That's why on the night of the Asata, the same thing on the Asata, the night, the moon, the same month that he was conceived, So he asked the charity, Chana, and then to leave the place, and this is where he left the palace. Okay. So it said that he was 29 years old, and then he had to begin his 6 years quest for awakening. Shall we read the next one because it's quite important? Whose turn now? During these 6 years, do you know where I am now?
Yeah.
On the page 21st.
Okay.
Yeah.
During these 6 years, he first spent time with and practiced the system of meditation taught by
Arada Kalama.
And then
Udraka Brahmaputra.
Although he mastered their respective systems, he felt that here he had not found any real answer to the problem of human suffering. So next, in the company of 5 other wanderer ascetics, he turned to the practice of severe austerity. The old texts preserve a hauntingly vivid description of the result of this practice, the 8 eggs.
Yeah, okay. Do anyone want to read that, the 8 act, that means the austerity? Do you want to continue first? Yeah, okay.
My body reached a state of extreme...
On the very beginning of page 22nd, sorry, yeah. Yes, please.
My body reached a state of extreme emaciation. Because of eating so little, my limbs became like the jointed stems of creepers or bamboo. My backside became like a buffalo's hoof. My backbone, bent or straight, was like corded bees. My jutting and broken rib were like the jutting and broken rafter of an old house. The gleam of my eyes sunk deep in their sockets was like the gleam of water seen deep down at the bottom of a deep well.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we just read the next paragraph too, and next, yeah. Sorry.
But by his grueling penance, he again felt he had not found what he was searching for. Then he recalled an experience from his youth. One day, seated quietly beneath the shade of a rose apple tree, his mind had settled into a state of deep calm and peace. Buddhist tradition calls this state the first meditation,
or dhyana.
Or dhyana.
Mm-hmm.
According to the later Buddhist understanding, this state is the gateway to a state of perfect mental calm, an equilibrium known as the fourth dhyana.
Dhyana.
Dhyana. As he reflected, it came to the Bodhisattva that it was by letting the mind settle in this state of peace that he might come to find what he was looking for. This required that he nourish his body and regain his strength. His 5 companions thought he had turned away from the quest and left him to his own devices. In the full legend, this is the occasion of the young woman Sujata's offering of milk rice to the Bodhisattva. Now nourished, he seated himself beneath an azavanta tree, henceforth to be known as the tree of awakening, or Bodhi tree. It was once more the night of the
Vaisakha.
Full moon, and he made a final resolve. Let only skin, sinew, and bone remain. Let the flesh and blood dry in my body, but I will not give up the seed without attaining complete awakening. The gods from many different world systems gathered around the tree, sensing that something momentous was about to happen.
All right, thank you. Why don't we read another paragraph, because, let me see. Okay, no, okay, so we explain first, I guess. So it's very important to know, usually they don't know for lots of people, but it's definitely in the Buddhist legend, that's something that we definitely have to know. That when he renounced, he was not like wandering around, Actually, he did follow 2 teachers first. And one teacher is called Arata Kalama and second Uttra Kalama Putra. The first teacher actually taught him to meditate up to a meditation state. Usually we call that meditation state called dhyana. Okay? In Pali it's called jhana, but in Sanskrit called dhyana. It's very popular, even if you learn yoga in any, definitely they talk about dhyana. But to Indian general understand dhyana means the higher, the richest, the ultimate goal of the meditation, but not the Buddhist, okay? But anyway, that we will have a lot of discussion in the next few chapters in future. But at least know that that's how the Indian culture in those days. And then he did learn from a teacher called Arata Kalama who taught him the dhyana up to what we call the 4th dhyana. But some also say called arupa dhyana. I mean, anyway, that's 5th dhyana if there's something called dhyana, okay? Just, we will have that discussion in the future. So, and then he was not satisfied, and he can reach that state very easily. So, and Arata Kalama, in Indian tradition, if you want to be a teacher, it's very hard. You have to follow teacher for a long, long time. I mean, especially in those days, 2,600 years ago. Even now, it may be even the same thing, even those days. But imagine he went there very short time, he can do that so easily without any difficulty and could be doing a lot of goodness there. So, and then Arahata Kalama as a teacher who asked the Buddha, who asked the Siddhartha actually as the wanderers who quest for the liberation. So to stay so that they could teach together, but then it was not accepted by anyway by the Siddhartha. So he left Arahata Kalama and he went to another teacher called Uttaka Ramaputra. Actually, when the Siddhartha went there to practice, he also easily reached to the higher state of the dhyana. So we have the term there, but we will introduce that maybe later because we will talk that in the next few chapters about meditation that time. So, and he can reach the stage where Uttaka Ramaputra couldn't reach. The name called Ramaputra, okay? Rama, actually Ramaputra is a name. That means Uttaka is like a family name. Ramaputra is a name, but it just want to show he is the son of the Rama, okay? And his father is powerful than the son, okay? That's why when the Buddha reached that state, and then the Ramaputra was surprised, saying, "You reached the state, I couldn't reach even." But that was only my father reached the state. He heard about it, but he didn't know how he can enter that kind of state, a meditation state. That's why he also asked the Buddha, "You are the best, why don't you just stay? And then we can, both of us, lead the students and teach them." But then the Buddha still found that was not the liberation. That's why he left. So that can have a lot of discussion. If you like to discuss that, we can discuss that later. Anyway, the story is like this, but then after that kind of meditation state, which is always wonderful, nice, and beautiful, now he searched another kind of common practice in India in those days. Even now, actually, not only those days, even now. But those days, much more serious. That is the asceticism, 就是苦行了, asceticism. So here, the description we just read, so it said that he practiced so hard that his body completely like deformed, okay? He was completely deformed, almost like. And then there are lots of description about how did he practice, but this is just a little paragraph. He had tried all the way, even much more serious than any other people who practice asceticism. So the most famous word to say, he only ate one grind of the wheat, 1 grind a day to sustain his energy. Okay.
Can I ask another?
Yes.
Sorry to dwell on this point, but the last sentence uses the term world system. Gods from different world systems, and I'm trying to understand that term.
Let me see, where is it?
At the very end of the sentence we just read, like the gods from different world system gathered around to see what something is about to happen.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah, I didn't even notice that. Let me just see.
I think that's a Mahayana text.
No, not Mahayana. No.
It's not in the Pali text.
No. Okay, there was what's the question about?
Just trying to understand the term.
The world system here. I think my understanding here refers to different levels of the heavens. Yeah. Actually, sometimes the Buddha also, according to Buddhism, even the earth here is kind of like the heavens also, just very low, the lowest one. Still considered as kind of like a heavens because we have ability to change the thing, No, that is not Mahayana. That is. Do you want to ask this question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Actually, the thing is like this because we know that the Buddha, when he attained the Buddhahood before that, he also when he realized that the asceticism is not working, and then when he also back to the memory say about he remembered when he was a kid, he had that wonderful experience too. So that's why that was reminding me he should have using that meditation wonderful feelings to help him to achieve his goal. So anyway, there was a state that he was reaching the state called Nirodha Samapatti. Because this is a deep thing, I think he didn't have to write, and lots of people even didn't know the story. Usually we translate as the absorption of complete cessation. Complete cessation, okay. 就是灭尽定 in Chinese.
Above the eighth.
Yeah. No, above the eight. No, that is only for, according to Buddhism belief, that's only for people who know the Vipassana, the insight meditation could do that. Anyway, so the thing it is because when that time when he realized that time, according to legend say that the heavenly being always waiting for that moment, because to have a Buddha was born, to have somebody who attend Buddhahood is one of the like rejoiceful, quite good. People have to be rejoiced. That's why the heavenly being from different heavens, and don't forget he came from a Tusita heavens, that even including one of the heavens too, and they was waiting for that moment to come. Okay, and the other thing is that when he attended Buddhahood, he was staying in that time for a long time, and almost like he was dead, because when he entered this kind of state called Nirodha Samapatti, depending on how people translate, some people translate that as a complete, like the cessation. That means his thought is completely lost. He could stay there for a long time. And so people thought that was not the state that, please don't misunderstood according to meditation theory. Not that because you meditate for a long time without aware, let's say you sit there for 1 week, not waking up, it doesn't mean that you always reach this state, okay? Because there's another state that's called no thought state, which is not encouraged by the Buddha, because it said you're wasting your time. Just to meditate for 1 week and then you wake up for 1 week. So what? Okay. So I'm not talking about that state, but I want to mention this because a lot of people confuse these two things. Okay. That is another state. That is actually a very low state. And this is actually is only for people who are really only up to the sainthood or third fruit. Otherwise you have no way to enter it. Okay. But anyway, once the Buddha, he attended Buddhahood, he did enter that kind of state also. And then the heavenly being also was discussed about, did he die? And there was a very popular topic discussed in all the Buddhist commentary later on, Anyway, that's basically mean one is to camp here, they came down here to see, waiting for that moment. Just like, when somebody is, like in Chinese stories, always like waiting for that person to pass the exam, then everybody will be great like that. To see a football show, maybe, for example, They know that's the moment where either he will succeed or lost. So that's why, yeah?
Casino, playing poker.
No, maybe something like that anyway. Okay. Where we were?
Bottom of 22.
No, let me see. Okay. Anyone have any questions? So he was set under the body tree. Of course, we know that at the night of that. So, and he was really make the determination, and he attended Buddhahood. Okay. There's a lot of questions to be asked here. I was surprised. If you don't have a question? Because a lot of information is not here. Now, one question is about, if you don't have, I will answer myself. I'll ask and answer. Why Sujata is so important? The woman who offered him the milk rice, According to the legend say that, someone who really to be accomplished, to become a Buddha, that final moment he need a very good diet. Okay. Okay. If without that diet, he have no body energy to do that. But for those who do meditation, we know, in a very important moment, you definitely need a good energy balance there. Otherwise, if you don't have enough diet, you have no way to go through it, because you will stop on the way. When you stop on the way, you maybe have to wait maybe for at least few months to come back. So it's something. but of course some people have become obsessive about that. That's wrong, okay? But I just want to say the Sujata story important is because it's to say basically mean, but for those who practice, we know that kind of thing. No, you definitely, even though maybe your body is weak, but that moment you definitely need a very good diet to have a good practice. So the young woman Sujata did that. You know, if she did not appear, there's no way that Sujata could become a Buddha also. So and Sujata, why did he do that? Also, Sujata thought it was a kind of like the divine being sat under the tree. So that's why he was so pleased, because he would just wake up early morning. He had a good feeling, and he thought, this is my lucky day. So because she wanted to have a baby, she didn't have a baby, and she thought if she could offer somebody good food for anyone, that especially the good highly spirituality, and she would definitely grant the wish by the God. So that's why she wake up early. And usually, you know, this kind of thing had to cook by the slave, or the servants. But she didn't. She thought that was, somehow she felt like this is my good day. So, and then that's why she cooked by herself, you know, as a rich woman, you know. And then that was like with a meditative mind, and she went out and looked for where she could offer to anyone that really would deserve the best food she prepared. And that's of course a lot of legend about this kind of rice, how it make. And then even it's said that this rice, even actually when he was making, the God know, because that's the very important time for the Buddha. So the gods, the heavenly beings, try to put something on that rice too. So it's not just a normal food, even with the nectar from the heavenly being. But don't be surprised that we have a lot. He knows that. We know that some people who do meditation, they see the food also, they taste it also. And they can sustain their body very, very long time. And this is something about mystical. But anyway, forget about that now. But this kind of story came, as we do meditation, we don't feel surprised, because we believe that exists too, in somehow. Anyway. So, okay, that's one thing. But then actually he was not set on the Bodhi tree. After he ate the food and he went to the Bodhi tree, Aswata is a kind of term. It's called a Pipara tree. So he went there to sit under the Bodhi tree. Okay, and then he made the final resolution, and then it happened. Okay, that he became the Buddha. Any questions there? No. You see, I myself have one question. I answer the question myself.
My question is like,
yeah.
What you just said, like, because he had to get through the all the the discomfort, and then lost a lot of weight and everything, and then what you just said just happened that sometime that day someone offered him a meal, and then he gained the energy, and so he could do something like that. And that means like. What I was just trying to say is like whoever you have constantly have it's a kind of status change. So that's why you have some all of a sudden that you have kind of capability, or it's just like it's at that moment that it's already reached. So that's why you can do it.
Well, the thing is, he accepted this kind of milky rice. In those days, mean he's broken his vow. He was broken his vow. That but that's why the story said the other companions left him after when he accepted that kind of milk, milk rice to eat. And it also, according the legend said, actually he knew that he needed to accept that, because he know the answer already, how to walk in the middle path. Basically, this is what we are going to talk maybe next class. So how he have to walk in the middle path. So, but he needed energy. So, and there was a legend say that even not only did he accept this before he accept this milk rice, he actually was listened to. He would hear somebody was playing the harp, the music, and he realized that just like a music string, you cannot pull it too tight and too loose. Only when you put it on the middle way, like a moderate way, the exact correct way, and then the string can strung out with the beautiful music. So then he knew that somehow he knew that this is my explanation. He knew that somehow just only based on the happiness, the joyness would not lead him to be meditate. Only based on the suffering, torture himself, just only, even though he was, trying to torture himself, doing the thing that would not allow him to have this like the sensual craving and everything, but would not help him to come to the liberation. Because these two ways of practices in India is very common. Either they do this way or either they do that way. Like they only enjoy meditation. They think that when you see the beautiful stage of meditation, you are in a God, you are beautiful, you are happy. And that is one extreme. And the other extreme is that don't eat, don't do this, then, and completely like just like, torturing, trying to believe what not people always cannot live it, the way. So, and he knew that they both have to be fine, both have to be abandoned and walk in the middle, So he realized that through the harps, the music. And this is why Buddhism don't have this kind of like, people like always thinking, ask me a question like, like in a lot of religion believing in fasting. But Buddha didn't say yes and no. But that was not the main point. If you think you want to fast, fine. But don't think that because fasting you could be liberated, But the Buddha didn't say that fasting do not help you or help you. But because that was not the main point, That's the reason why, even though a lot of people think that Buddhism do have a fasting, no, Buddhism don't have a fasting. But the Buddhism did ask you to eat moderate, Not necessarily be, actually in India especially, been accepted. Even now I know some people don't. But you have to understand Indian culture. The Indian believe that if any practitioner eat the minimal, the best, right? Even now Chinese thinks that way actually. In India it's very strong, very, very strong. The Chinese is compared to Indian, no. Indian is so strong. They think if you tell, he must be the great teachers because he doesn't eat. He only does that. Oh, wow. Everybody would think, he's the great guru, and like that.
But in terms of scientific point of view, it's like regularly, it's like you have less calorie uptake, it kind of lasts longer or something like that. And then you also have, later, you can, what you just describe as more awareness, something like that. And then, but once because you haven't been through that specific stage of the, what I just described, or, very discomfort in that kind of situation, and then he won't realize there's some sort of status change, to let him realize something. Or if he constantly have that kind of, keep that status, perhaps he won't be understanding.
Yeah. That's actually that's one of the opinions about that. That's why even once I knew that in Japan, that's why he postulated there was a few monks, actually one monk very famous. He thought that how he can become a Buddha, how Siddhartha, because of, like you just say, because he had those experiences, and we don't have those experiences. So then, if you don't have those experiences, you will not be a Buddha. So that's why he was like sitting under the cold water during the winter time, when the spring water come down, he sat under naked and something like that, half naked at least. So, and he thought that was kind of a penalty, the self-modification he had to practice in order to attain Buddhahood. That's one kind of explanation. But I don't take it that way. This is my opinion. I don't take it that way because if that was the case, then if he believed the Buddha had the vision after attaining Buddhahood, he would say, everybody go for the panel first for a few years and then come back for me. He didn't say that. He strict away, because we're going to read the text, we're supposed to read today, but anyway, we'll read next class. So he strict away to tell you, both ways are wrong. Cannot go extreme. Always have to stay in the middle path. So, and the middle path is really, really important concept in Buddhism. Yeah. Even a lot of people think, you say, well, but anyway, everything had to be moderate, cannot be extreme. So, and that is always one of the big topics in Buddhism. Yeah. So yeah, you could say that or maybe you could put it this way, my experience will put it this way. So maybe he's destined to practice that. Why? He had to show people that I learned this also. I also learned that, but it doesn't work. So I get that's my explanation. Otherwise, people say, yeah, you never practice the asceticism. So, you know, we also become arahant. How could you say you beat? And the Buddha saying, no, it doesn't work. It maybe help you still, according to the text say very clear, it help you still morality good, but not for the liberation. Yeah. So, that's my explanation anyway. Okay. All right. Here, the next paragraph, we don't have to read it, but we can discuss the last one. It's about, actually it said that when he was practicing about becoming a Buddha, then there was a Mara, you know, please remain this term Mara. On the page 23, second paragraph, you see there's a term called Mara, M-A-R-A, okay. Sometimes Chinese translate as 罗摩丸, okay. 但是一般简单的 the normally we just translate 魔, okay. So the Mara, but basically we must understand it's in a certain aspect almost like a Satan in the other religion, okay. But however, we have to understand the Mara from Buddhist perspective is a little different. It's basically he is kind of divine beings. He's just jealous. Jealous anybody who is powerful than me. It's not like the movie that you always see the demon is come from hell. No, actually the demon to Buddhism understand it's divine being, powerful, and sometimes not necessarily always do bad thing, but it's just only they are jealous people who are powerful than them. Okay, it's different. The more basically because they did not subdue their jealousy, so it's said that the legend said that when the Buddha about to attain the Buddhahood, so the body will issuing out the light, go far away, and the Mara could feel it, this kind of light, or you could say this kind of energy. So and he knew, why another Buddha has come born again? You know, because the divine is really, divine life is very long. For them, it's like, it is said that one divine life there, one day is equal 120 years in the earth, right? So for them, maybe just only half day or maybe 1 day. And then so, and but that's how the Buddhist calculation is like the earlier, the closest, galaxy world, or you could say the heaven to the earth is half day is 60 years here, right? So that means 1 day is 120 years. So anyway, so that's why he thought, okay, now let's just go down, challenge him. So and maybe the Mara was feel very bored. So even though the lecturer said he was like, what again? But actually he might be feel bored. Now is a good time. So anyway, he did his all divine, his buddies, his buddies. His soldiers and came down and challenged the Buddha. I guess this is in the West, they always have to solve this kind of mythical story, whether it's true or whether it's just only to have any psychological significance, because there's no way to explain the psychological aspect of in old days, 2,600 years ago, so that you have to use a story or kind of mythical fairy tales to let the people understood. So there was few different opinions. Most of the Western, of course, they choose not to believe that, but I choose to believe it anyway. Okay, they only say that the story make it that way just to show there's a psychological battle in the Buddha's head. Okay. So when the light came, and then the Mara came down, and first he would send his 3 daughters to seduce the Buddha. The most beautiful woman to seduce the Buddha, but it didn't work. And then the second one make the Buddha angry. So that's why the second daughter is called angry. Okay, the first was called sensual pleasure, mean naked and seduce the Buddha. So it didn't work. And the second, it just used stir the Buddha anger, but it didn't work. And the third one, it's they call the foolish one, like the ignorance. So and then seduce the Buddha also it didn't work. Even that doesn't harm the Buddha. It didn't work. And then the Mara, what did he do? The next one, he was trying to scare the Buddha. So how did he scare the Buddha? So, and all these armies shoot the arrows. You could see Buddha was alone under the, it's a beautiful story actually, sitting on the under the Bodhi tree, but all these big amount of these kind of soldiers, armies, having this archery, you could say, shoot out all these arrows towards the Buddha. And the Buddha didn't even have any afraid of the death and not afraid of anything. The arrows are shooting around, like thousand arrows shooting. But he only had the compassion towards them. That's what we call the great compassion. So all the arrows turned into the lotus and came down. You know, one of the beautiful stories there too. But definitely it just want to show one thing, morality about even the people trying to hurt you with all the arrows. That time the Buddha, while he was doing meditation, he didn't have any reaction, but only the loving kindness towards them, the compassion towards them. So, and then the other thing is to crush the Buddha's confidence. So that's why the Mara came out, confronted to the Buddha. Actually, I would say Siddhartha maybe best to say. He didn't attend the Buddha yet. So said to Siddhartha, so you alone sitting here, look at me. I have so many army. I'm the great king. And you are alone there. Who can assure you that you would be the Buddha, the fully enlightened one? And then the Buddha didn't reply, but quietly raised his hand down. If you saw a Buddha statue, that's the statue I like the most. The white one, if you have seen before, that statue is the hand, the Buddha sit like that, right? And one hand, put it down on the knee, he was sitting, touching on the earth, and say, the earth will be my witness that I will become a Buddha. So it is said that because he had such a great confidence, and then the whole earth was shaking. And you can imagine that when, like an earthquake, like the whole earth was shaking, and then these armies was really like shake down, and they were so scared. And that time, the Mara, we don't like to translate demon because it's a completely different concept, as I say. It's just a jealous, kind of jealous type of the divine beings, very powerful, the most powerful, one of the powerful, like the king, you know, of the divine, but it's just jealous type. So, and then the Mara was, what happened is that, knew that there's no way to crush the Buddha anymore, because the last thing to crush the Buddha is to about his confidence. You be alone here, how do you know you will succeed in becoming the Buddha? But then when he said the earth can be my witness, and the earth will move, almost like, yes, it could be like that, you know. So then they left. And this is how he had a quiet time. And then from that quiet time, he entered a very powerful meditation. 3 kinds of knowledge is arised. I don't know whether this mentioned here, no, but I like the story, just I maybe say a little more. So, and the first knowledge, he saw his past life. 1 past life, 2 past life, 2 billion past life. Normally people think that if you can see only three of your own past lifetime, that's enough. But to the Buddha, after that they left, he completely quiet down, and he could see his past life for like a billion his own past life. So he knew that he was born here, he was born there, being this kind of thing, being that kind of thing, being this person, what kind of name, being the merchant, being a king, being a queen, being a this, being a that, like that. So a life. And then the second knowledge arose to him, that then he started to see the whole universe. Basically first say the earth. Then he started to see the earth, and he recognized the earth. In this area, they used to have a mountain, now the mountain's gone. They used to have the river's gone. They used to have no river, no lake, it became a lake, like that. So he started to see the whole evolve of the earth. And he also started to see the earth also, before it arise, it was broken. It was another galaxy, there was not any, maybe same galaxy, he didn't say that, just another place they say there was earth. And then the earth was broken, and then another similar life was arise. The same as the other kind of thing. So, and then also, not only he himself, but also people, animal, anything, the same thing. they will be having the same kind of, I don't know what to call reincarnation or what, like changing. So that's the second knowledge he arised. And the third knowledge, then he started to see, you see, that is just only one thought. The thought is just because ignorance, don't understand that's how a life is. So that means the life is have to go through this kind of process again and again and again and again. Not he himself, even the whole material thing, and even the beings are like that. So just because of the craving of the life, craving of something, very subtle. So this very subtle thing, and he saw that this is how then he earned the third knowledge, that means the knowledge of liberation. So, and this is how he became a Buddha. All right, why don't we just end it here if you have any question first. And then we'll have some note for you to go back to read, if you have time. But if you read it, it may be easier. Anyway, do you have any questions? Yeah.
I do have a question. In Mahapali Nibbana Sutta, I remember Mara mentioned once that when Buddha reached the enlightenment stage, Mara came to him and asked him to leave.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Of course, there's another detail. Yeah.
Yeah, but
okay.
Mara left already. Did he come back or?
No, he came back because the thing it is when according to this, what the whole thing is, the story say, when he attended Buddhahood, of course he stayed under the Bodhi tree for a week, and totally he was 49 days was there, and then the Mara came back, saying that now you reach what you need, that means you're fully liberation. Why don't you just die now? Somehow like that. So actually, that time the Buddha was thinking, it's true. I have reached what I think maybe I should be thinking that but no, but that's a good question. Let me think. Yeah, actually he replied to him, he say, no, I couldn't, maybe I don't die now because I could actually help some other people reach the same thing. So, but then the Mara also challenged him, he say, nobody could do that, and something like this. So then he left. Because the Mara still, even he couldn't win him to, to stop him to become a fully enlightened, but he still had to stop him to propagating his teaching so that he could. There are more people more powerful than the Mara. Because the Mara generally, he knew that if he can, it's kind of legendary belief that he can send anybody to tempt the person, but they cannot tempt the Buddha, So, and he feel that is something he always feel uneasy about. Yeah, but then did we mention here? I think we did mention. I don't know whether we did read it. So it said then of course. Yeah. We did. The one I maybe go a little ahead. Maybe it's all right. So anyway, so of course then there's also kind of dilemma also the Buddha whether he wanted to give the teachings, but then and then the story goes on. Right, and of course we know that he did. Otherwise we won't have a class here even. A Buddhism class at least. The world will be completely different. At least we don't have this kind of different thing that tell us what it is about. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, it's almost time now. It's 9:16, and then anyone knows that what is the next class?
Next week.
Huh? Next week. Next week we have class. I see. All right, so I will see you next week. Oh, by the way, please have the notes. Go back to read this one if you have time. At least have a glance through, because this is the first teachings of the Buddha. So after he get the Buddhahood, and there's a first teaching. So please read this one, the setting the wheels of Dharma in motion. Okay, at least just read through it. Very short sutra, but it's very, very important because that's the first talk of the Buddha. Okay. I do print out the Chinese too. There was a translation on Chinese. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for your coming. So I'll see you next week then. Yeah. Okay. No mention.